Good afternoon to you. It's 3:06 here, Newstalk 105.9 WMAL, where we're making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, Ned Ryun from American Majority is here. At 3:30, we'll get his take on all of the rapid-fire actions President Trump has been taking in just a day, in the single day that he's been in office. It's been great. John Solomon will join us at 4:30 today as we discuss President Trump's pardons for those January 6th political prisoners. And then John Yoo is here at 5 o'clock, the former Deputy Assistant Attorney General. We discuss TikTok and the future of that Chinese Communist Party platform. You can join us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. This morning, President Trump attending a national prayer service at the National Cathedral. And while he was there, he was greeted by this anti-Trump lunatic, a priestess by the name of Mariann Budde, who had this to say from the pulpit today.
See upon the people in our country who are scared now. There are gay, lesbian, and transgender children in Democratic, Republican, and independent families. Some who fear for their lives. And the people who pick our crops and clean our office buildings, who labor in poultry farms and meat packing plants, who wash the dishes after we eat in restaurants and work the night shifts in hospitals, they may not be citizens or have the proper documentation, but the vast majority of immigrants are not criminals. They pay taxes and are good neighbors. They are faithful members of our churches and mosques, synagogues, wadara, and temples. I ask you to have mercy, Mr. President, on those in our communities whose children fear that their parents will be taken away, and that you help those who are fleeing war zones and persecution in their own lands to find compassion and welcome here.
So in summary, her position is that we need to desperately keep abusing children, and please don't deport my servants that I'm not even paying above the table. Oh, my goodness. Joining me now from the great state of Alabama, the U.S. Senator Tommy Tuberville is on the phone. Sir, good to have you with us today in the new Trump administration, sir.
Well, good morning. I tell you what, it amazes me, Vince, what words come out of people's mouths.
Yes.
It's hard. It's hard to fathom what a bishop would bring up in the house of God about something like this. I mean, we have a parenting problem across this country. We got a mental illness problem.
Yes.
And it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. And it's the people that just step out. They don't mind what they say. That's fine. At least we know who they are. But President Trump and his family had to sit there and listen to this, but it just shows you the how deep this goes.
Well, it's blasphemous. What you just heard her say is that if someone thinks that they're born in the wrong body, you should enable that delusion. You should continue to abuse them. And she's saying that from the pulpit, Senator. I know this is an issue that you care very deeply about. It is lunacy to have her say something like that and then direct it as an attack at the President of the United States.
100%. 100%. And of course, people got their own views and things like that, but it's abuse. I mean, this is absolute abuse. And, I don't, if there's a young person out there that wants to change the way they look or whatever, when they're 18 or 19, 20-year-old, they have that opportunity. But my problem that I have, and President Trump has, we've talked about this, is these young people that are 4, 5, 6, 7 years old that are basically being brainwashed into thinking that they're another gender, and they have some kind of physical change or drug change. It's absolutely a disaster.
No, yeah, and happiness doesn't lie that way. Instead, dependency and misery does. But the left keeps pushing it. The president yesterday, as a part of the many executive orders that he was signing, signed one that declared outright that there's no more playing around here. The government is only going to recognize reality. Here's what he said.
As of today, it will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female.
Only two genders, male and female, the president said yesterday. Meanwhile, I know that there's a piece of legislation, sir, that you've been working on, the Protection of Women and Girls in Sports Act. Tell us about that.
Well, we brought it up for a vote, Vince, twice in the last 4 years. Of course, the Democrats voted down, and all this does says if you're a biological boy or a man, you cannot compete in women's sports. It ain't going to happen. But the Democrats are all for that. And I think this is one of the big issues in the last month that President Trump actually put out there on TV and stuff. And people says, hey, wait a minute. I agree with President Trump. This is ridiculous. And so it's a hot topic. It'll probably come on the floor. Of course, we're very busy with all the nominations, probably sometimes in a month from now, middle of February, and we'll get a vote on it. I'm not making a deal with the Democrats where they can, give 51 votes because then they get all these amendments. It's going to have to be 60 votes. I want to hear how people are going to vote after this nonsense, and people have stepped up and said enough's enough of this after the election. So they'll get a chance to either make a good vote or a bad vote.
Yes.
But President Trump he's going to say no more of this. But it's not. You got to get it into law. You can't just executive order all this. You got to get into law where they can't move it back when another president gets in.
And this is not some sort of evenly split issue, by the way. I just wanted people to understand. The New York Times just did a survey that they released this weekend. They surveyed thousands of people, and they found that 79% of respondents said that men who identify as women should not be allowed to play in women's sports. Among Democrats only, 67% of Democrats said that men should not play women's sports. Republicans, 94% felt that way. In other words, Senator, this is a clear-cut issue among the American voter.
Oh, exactly. I mean, it's a no-brainer. Of course, it's common sense. And I never thought in my lifetime I'd ever have to talk about this, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But being in the sports world for 35 years, it's not just the competition now. It's the dressing in women's dressing rooms. It is taking showers with young girls or older girls. The rapes that we've had over the years, Vince, people haven't heard those. I'm getting ready to bring them out, pushing this bill, the rapes, the things that are happening in the locker rooms. It's going to get worse and worse if we don't get control of this. And President Trump's going to get it done, but we're going to try to get it done on the Senate floor.
And we've also had this problem in women's prisons, too. Also a lesser discussed topic, but an important one, where men claim that they are women, go to women's prisons, especially under the Biden administration, and then commit more crimes while there, awful crimes to the women who are in those prisons.
Exactly, and it's happening more and more because, you're allowing these people to make decisions that they shouldn't. I mean, why in the world do you give a murderer an opportunity to say, oh, by the way, I think I'm a woman, so I need to go to a women's prison? I mean, enough of this nonsense. And again, that's the reason they put President Trump back in office.
Tom, Senator Tuberville, Coach Tuberville, I know you're a little short on time, so we'll just get to this last question with you. Do you expect the first piece of legislation that the president takes on to be the Lake and Riley Act? And then additionally, how soon do you think he gets his cabinet back from the United States Senate?
Well, yeah, the Lake and Riley Act will be done, and rightly so. I mean, again, another piece of common sense legislation to protect the people in this country. But we've got to get these noms done, and we've got to get going on reconciliation. We have to get the tax bill done. He's going to do everything he can at the border with executive orders right now, but we have to make sure that we make permanent this tax bill for the American people, because if we don't, taxes go way up, and the average American next year will pay $1,000 more a month taxes if we don't get this done. So it is very important, because if we don't do it, you're going to see Democrats back in these offices in 2 years.
Yes, indeed. All right, man. There's always so much more I want to talk to you about, but I know you got to go. Coach Tuberville, thank you very much for your time today, sir.
Thank you, man.
There he is. All right. Tommy Tuberville, the senator from Alabama. They've got a lot of nominees they're dealing with right now. One of the things I'd like to talk to the coach about at some point when we get him back is Pete Hegseth for Secretary of Defense. Remember, I just want to remind everyone about the virtue that Senator Tuberville represents. He was practically standing alone against the United States military's horrific abuse of taxpayer resources to advance an abortion agenda in the Biden administration. It was Tuberville. He was the one guy saying, no, I'm not granting you unanimous consent for every one of these nominations inside of the Pentagon. Not while you're killing off a bunch of kids. You get rid of those policies, you stop that the way you're supposed to, then fine, I'll join in on unanimous consent, but I'm not doing that right now. And he mounted a very long and valiant fight against that. And I'm curious to what extent Pete Hegseth may have had discussions with him about what the future of the Defense Department looks like in terms of funding abortion tourism and abortion activism at in the Pentagon. I imagine, I think I know the answers to all these questions. I have a feeling we're going to look kindly on how things are going with Mr. Hegseth, soon to be hopefully Secretary Hegseth, although the left's appetite to destroy him is not abating. They're trying to leak new scandals now to try and take him down. It's never ending. But yeah, our thanks again to Senator Tuberville. Always enjoy having him on. But where we started today, that bishop, that lady bishop, the priestess, this morning at the national prayer event, attacking President Trump. Now, during the attack, where she's saying, hey, there's so many LGBTQ kids who are scared right now. Well, first of all, the left always does this. They lump all those letters together as if they share one thing in common. But they don't. We're talking unique categories here entirely. Also, if your whole thing is like, what about the gay people? Do you know how many members of Trump's cabinet are gay? To be honest with you, I don't, because it's basically an irrelevant detail for a cabinet member, their sexuality. I can tell you, Scott, apparently, I found out during the hearing, I didn't even know, Scott Bessent, the Treasury Secretary, the incoming Treasury Secretary, gay guy. I had no idea, because that is not the relevant detail, it turns out. And yet she's up there going, oh, people are scared. No, what she's specifically talking about is her party's ability to groom children into delusions about their gender is in peril now. Because there are people who have taken the reins of power who'd like to bring some accountability to child abuse. Let's stop abusing children is the plan. And she's worried about that. She'd like to continue doing that. And then I don't know if it's the best part, but just her riff about who will pick my crops? Who will clean my dishes? She says, how about you? How about you stop being such a lazy? I'll hold back. Do your own dishes. How about that? How about you start scrubbing your own dishes? When was the last time you cleaned a pot, lady? Oh, I'm a bishop. No, you're not. Like, will you stop? She's insane is what she is. And you could tell on the faces of President Trump and Vice President J.D. Vance. I love that. I paused for a moment because I was like, wait, what? Who's the vice president now? Yes, J.D. Vance, who I should say represents all of us. He is every so often in script writing on a television show or in a movie. The writers will try and put a character in who sort of represents the general reaction of the audience. You know, they don't describe it that way, but that character is reacting the way the audience would to all of these events. That is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance is the audience's muse. J.D. Vance is the guy who reacts the way the rest of us react. So he's looking over at his wife, Usha, during this whole sequence where the priestess is attacking him and President Trump. He's looking over. His eyes are rolling into the back of his head. Like, what is she talking about? Trump's eyes are rolling into the back of his, oh, my. And in fact, we don't even need facial expressions to handle all of this, because when President Trump got back to the White House, he was walking through the portico area of the White House, and the press was allowed access. This is a very unusual thing. We haven't had this experience in the last 4 years. And a reporter shouted out, what did you think of the sermon? And, well, Trump told her.
Mr. President, what did you think of the sermon? What did you think of the sermon? What did you think of this?
What did you think of the sermon?
What did you think? You like it? You find it exciting? Not too exciting, was it? I did think it was a good service, Tom.
What did you think, he said. What did you think? Did you like it? Not too exciting, was it? I didn't think it was a good sermon. No, he says.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, press. Thank you, press.
They could do much better.
They could do much better, he says. And then he walks off with all of his aides who are headed towards the Oval Office with him. Isn't that great? Yeah, it could have been better. Yeah, it could have been a lot better. This lady is crazy. The Episcopal priestess. Lunatic. In fact, I've got some audio for you from what she has said in the past. And she defends the worst things. She defends rioters burning St. John's Church in front of the White House. Oh, it's totally fine. It's an expression of their decency. Yeah, well, I've got that coming up. Yeah, this the priestess lady, Mariann Budde, Mariann Budde. That's her last name is Budde. They moved the E from the name Mariann to the end of Bud and made it Budde, Mariann, whatever. And she was okay with the rioters burning St. John's Church, for which she's responsible. Here's what she had to say at the time.
We accept outcomes we may not like. We live to struggle another day. We are gracious in victory and magnanimous in defeat. But that's not what we're seeing today. The demonstrations here in Washington want to take those foundational principles, principles that have undergirded this nation for nearly 250 years, and toss them out. They do not respect our laws. The protesters do not
Is this the January 6th riff that she's making?
respect our social contract. They do not respect our safety. And they bring dishonor to themselves and on those they claim to support.
Right. Okay. So she's attacking the January 6th people, but the people who burned the church, St. John's, she was very with them.
First of all, the context which your reporting described, that after speaking so harshly and with militaristic overtones to the nation, he had the park of peaceful protesters cleared with tear gas and officers in riot gear to make a
By the way, that's a hoax. He didn't.
Symbolic gesture, holding a Bible as if to spiritually condone a message and a posture that is antithetical to the teachings of Jesus and everything that we as a church stand for.
Yeah. Go ahead, burn the church, she said. It's fine. She's a crazy person, actually. She called for getting rid of President Trump while he was in office. So imagine her joy today. She seemed like a joyful person. No, not at all. Hey, coming up, Ned Ryun will be with us. The president wasting no time getting started on his agenda very rapidly. Did a lot of events yesterday. He doesn't seem like he's getting tired either, which is a good thing. Ned Ryun joins us next. Hey, good afternoon to you. It is now 3:35 News Talk 105.9 WMAL, where we are making sense of the news. Coming up on the program, John Solomon from Just the News joins us. We'll talk about President Trump's big pardons for all of those January 6th political prisoners under Joe Biden. And then John Yoo at 5 o'clock, the law professor and the former deputy assistant attorney general, joins us to talk about TikTok, that Chinese Communist Party app, its future in the country. John will have some thoughts on that subject, and you can talk to us at 888-630-9625, 888-630-WMAL. An amazing scene last night. I was transfixed by it. Much of the nation was, I'd bet, too. As President Trump sat in the Oval Office with reporters present, asking him questions, cameras rolling, and signing executive order after executive order after executive order, and happily explaining each one. Will Scharf, who you've heard on this program, handing him each one of these executive orders, and the president finding out, what am I signing here? What am I signing here? We're getting out of this awful, whatever it is, the Paris Climate Accords, all these stupid things, and we're going to save the country a lot of money. A lot of great executive orders coming through last night. Here to discuss just how much the picture has improved is Ned Ryun. He's the founder and CEO of American Majority and the author of American Leviathan, the birth of the administrative state and progressive authoritarianism. Ned, good to have you back with us, sir.
Yeah, great to be with you, Vince. Obviously, the last time I saw you, we were enjoying a lovely cigar.
We were.
At the Daily Caller event. That was a blast. Man, the whole weekend, just incredible. I mean, yesterday, absolutely amazing, from his inaugural speech, which was incredible, in which he just castigated again and again those that had tried to destroy him, and also the insane policies they'd been pushing, and they couldn't do anything about it.
Yes.
And then, as you mentioned, just some absolutely incredible executive orders that I have to tell you, having read through some of them, I'm like, I could have written this. I love these so much. The only one I quibble with is obviously the TikTok one, but everything else, amazing.
Yeah.
Absolutely incredible.
Well, that makes you a thinking, rational human being. You're allowed to disagree on occasion, but there is a lot of good here. clearly. Yesterday, President Trump, a tour de force. And in fact, I wonder to what extent, because I know you know a lot about this subject, the president can actually get about cleaning up the federal government. I mean, as we were going into these final weeks of the Biden administration, one of the unfortunate stories was that all these Biden people were trying to lay a bunch of landmines for the incoming Trump administration to make things difficult. How much was President Trump able to unwind some of that yesterday?
So I'm telling people there's three really big buckets with a few on the side, but it was really these executive orders about border and immigration, energy, and then really the administrative state, in which he re-implemented Schedule F. Right, you can reclassify some of these federal employees if they're fighting him on policy, anything that's related to policy, he can fire them.
Yes,
as the head of the Article 2 executive branch.
F means
the
fireable.
One I loved. Yeah, the one I loved was dealing with the senior executive service. And people who aren't in D.C. probably aren't as familiar with the SES level, but it's really that level between the federal employees and the political appointees of the administration.
Yeah. And the thing, I think the thing that people should know, an SES employee is the civilian equivalent of a general. It is considered the same level as a flag officer in the United States military.
And very powerful. And in fact, SES pretty much they run essentially 75 different federal agencies. They are to implement the policy of a given administration, but we know, Vince, that over the course of years, especially with Republican administrations, especially with a Trump administration, most of these SES types think they're the ones who are the deciders. They're the ones who actually make the policy. Again, that was what the progressives always wanted.
Right.
And Donald Trump is coming in and saying, hey, minor point, constitutional point here, as the head of the Article 2 executive branch, the president here, you're going to, at the SES level, do what I tell you to do. You're going to implement my policies. And if you don't, if we find you leaking information, if we find you fighting policy implementation, you will be held accountable. There will be consequences. And Vince, I think there's still a fundamental question that they're going to have to work through of, can he hire or fire SES types at will? He has to make these federal employees and the SES types at-will employees, and if you do not follow the directives of the head of the Article 2 branch, where most of the administrative state is, you'll be fired. So that one I loved. He obviously began DOGE officially with that an executive order. I mean, he hired he put a hire freeze on federal employees and also on regulations, which is huge. Also did an executive order on stopping the weaponization of government, which some of this stuff is so common sense, but it's really been so abused over the last 4 years, especially, that he clearly felt the need. We have to have an executive order saying you can't do that anymore. I thought the other one that was really good, and it kind of deals with this whole idea of accountability and who decides. He stripped the security clearance for those 51 intel officials who lied to the American people about Hunter Biden's laptop and said it was Russian disinformation when they knew for a fact that was untrue. And again, they did it to manipulate the 2020 elections. But it really comes down to those 51 intel officials thought they were better than the American people, even more so better than the duly elected representative of the American people, and they willfully and intentionally lied to manipulate the election to help take out Donald Trump, to have Joe Biden come in. So I have to tell you, amazing what took place yesterday, and Donald Trump has hit the ground running in a just amazing way.
I do want to ask you that, you mentioned the 51 intel officials. They had their security clearances revoked. In that same order, President Trump also revoked the security clearance of John Bolton. He decided he tacked him on.
He also pulled their Secret Service.
Yes, I was about to say that too. In fact, John Bolton's Secret Service protection was just, in case people wondered, John Bolton has had Secret Service protection until today. President Trump removed his Secret Service protection. The story that we've heard a lot is that Iran has been threatening to kill John Bolton, and that's why the Biden administration had extended Secret Service protection to him. Bolton saying today that he's, quote, disappointed that this Secret Service detail has been removed. What do you make of this, Ned?
There are consequences. I mean, first of all, John Bolton getting his security clearance revoked along with these other 51. I mean, this is how they make money. This is kind of how they have cachet in the private corporate sector, right? We got security clearances, but that's gone, right? You're done there. In regards to all of the Secret Service stuff being revoked, Trump's not going to. I don't think. I would argue 99.99% sure he's not going to pull Secret Service clearance if he thinks there's actually a legitimate threat against John Bolton. I mean, I think this is one of the things that he's like, we're done here. We're not doing this anymore. You don't get this courtesy that has been extended in the past. So we're pulling everything. John Bolton has made it very clear that he wants nothing to do with Donald Trump, and Donald Trump's returning the favor.
Yeah. Yeah, it's amazing, all these all the rats that are scurrying right now. So Biden, on his way out the door, he pardons everybody that he can possibly think of. You know, Mark Milley and Fauci and the January 6th
his gangster family
committee, his family, 5 family members. You know, this after years of everyone pretending like, oh, no, that's awful. Nobody would ever do that on the left. And certainly that's exactly what he did as he went out the door. I was chuckling that one of the Vindman family members was upset that the Vindmans, who, of course, led the effort in the first impeachment against President Trump, didn't get pardons. It really is amazing. It seems like the left is nervous right now, Ned, that there may be consequences for their actions.
Jack Smith didn't get a pardon. I mean, that to me was probably one of the more interesting ones, Vince, that Jack Smith, who I think, based off some reports, wanted a pardon, did not get one. Which tells you, again, he never would fully admit to it, but the whole purpose of Jack Smith and his witch hunt was to try and make sure that Donald Trump did not run and win the White House again.
I think Biden was mad. I think Biden was mad that he failed in that
100%
mission.
100% he was mad. Yeah, 100%. I think it was bitter vindictiveness from Biden towards Jack Smith that you failed. You failed in what we wanted you to do and make sure that Donald Trump did not take the White House back. And you failed miserably, and no, you're not going to get a pardon. No, I think there are a lot of people that should be highly nervous. And I want to make it very clear. People are like, oh, Donald Trump's going to be out about retribution. This isn't anything to do with retribution. This is all about accountability. And this is actually about saying we're going to have rule of law. We're actually going to have consequences for bad behavior. And I was talking with somebody recently in which I said, the problem that we have is because nobody actually went to jail over abusing the FISA process warrant by using a fake dossier to secure 4 FISA warrants to essentially try and take out and undermine a duly elected president. And because of that, I think that led to the political lawfare, which was even just a gross abuse of the DOJ and the FBI, and I would argue coordinated in many ways by the Biden White House, to use powerful entities that are supposed to uphold the rule of law as political weapons to take out Donald Trump. And so I think for this if you do not have consequences and accountability, then next time will be even worse.
So
and so I think there's got to be a dozen people or a couple dozen people that actually bear the consequences and actually maybe even potentially serve prison time.
How much of a difference does it make that the people who are coming into this administration, many of them have been on the receiving end of the very tyranny that you're talking about? So President Trump, of course, right at the top of the list. But I think, Kash Patel was subpoenaed and hauled in and treated like garbage by the federal government. You also, in the January 6th committee for that matter, you've got people like Pete Hegseth, who was treated as an extremist as a member of the National Guard because he had Christian tattoos. You have Tulsi Gabbard, who was tracked by U.S. air marshals as if she was some sort of terrorist. You have RFK Jr., who was censored by the United States government for expressing views that didn't align with the Biden administration's agenda. It is like the list is pretty endless, and these people are all going into positions of power, of importance. What role do you think that is going to play in righting this ship?
I think it's going to be a huge impact. I mean, let's not forget there's also a lot of senior White House officials. Susie Wiles. I know for a fact some of the deputy chiefs of staff were also targeted, subpoenaed, and harassed.
Yes.
So I think all of the experiences over the past 4 years are going to inform them as to the next steps. And again, I think it's going to inform Donald Trump. I mean, again, these executive orders made very clear that he is very aware what one of the biggest fights is for the future of this country, and it is bringing this out of control administrative state to heel. Basically deconstructing it through DOJ, which will run through O&B. So there's a lot of different things that they have become very aware of, understand the fight. And I think Kash Patel and Pam Bondi, I think in a very responsible way, have to, and I think will do, some of the things necessary to bring accountability to some of these people that abuse their power to restore trust. I mean, Vince, this is the thing. If there are no consequences, if there's no accountability, how do you actually restore trust into these institutions, because people have massively abused the DOJ and the FBI and the intelligence community. And if you don't have consequences for it, people are just going to go, yeah, we still don't trust those institutions in the future. To restore trust, there have to be consequences and there has to be accountability.
And even if somehow Fauci does, evade consequences because of this pardon that Biden provided to him, that doesn't mean everyone else around him couldn't be subjected to a vetting and scrutiny that they probably deserve. Like Peter Daszak at the EcoHealth Alliance.
Yes.
And these guys who were involved in picking Wuhan and building these freak viruses, and one of which apparently just got released on the planet. I do think that seems ripe for a criminal investigation to get to the bottom of it.
Yes. And most importantly, you have to do this so that someone in the future or people in the future don't go, well, there weren't consequences in the past, they'll do something even more egregious. No, you have to be able to go and look back and say, these people did this, look what happened to them. They went to prison. They had security clearances revoked. Quite frankly, their careers were destroyed because of their massive abuse of power. I mean, we have to have some examples here to go, can't do this. And if you do it in the future, this is what's going to happen to you. And I think that's going to have a chilling effect on the abuse of governmental powers. And again,
yes,
Trump did an executive order specifically about the weaponization of government. And so I think he's setting the tone, and I hope Pam Bondi and Kash Patel and, Ratcliffe and Tulsi and all these others that have the ability to do so start having accountability inside of these departments and agencies.
I hope so, too. Do you think everyone around Trump and who are tasked with advancing this agenda will be able to find that backbone to fight hard? Because I'll just give you an example of something I've kind of noticed in the air in the last 24 hours. President Trump granted these pardons for thousands of January 6th political prisoners yesterday. And I've noticed that there's something of a throat clearing going on among Republicans, or they don't really want to talk about it that much, or they want to talk about something else. And there's not actually a bunch of forceful defenses being made, which I'm annoyed by, because I think you can mount a very forceful defense. Do you think that we'll see, hopefully, some more testicular fortitude going forward?
Well, it's going to come from Donald Trump himself. I mean, he's going to have to inject a spine and a backbone, not so much into the people that he's nominating. I mean, he has gone out in a specific way. I think Pete Hegseth is SecDef, has got the backbone necessary. Kash Patel, the backbone and the courage necessary. Pam Bondi. I think he's going to have to instill courage into a lot of Republicans on Capitol Hill in the House and the Senate.
Yes.
And I love what he did with January 6th. I was calling for this. I mean, I called for it on Tucker's podcast and said he has to pardon all of them. You know, he commuted the sentences of 14, and the rest were full pardons. I would assume maybe in the future he's going to get full pardons to the other 14 or so.
He said he's going to look at that.
I loved it. Yeah, I loved it because what took place on January 6th was an egregious abuse. I think it was a manipulated setup. And then what they did, and I would remind people, what took place with those 1,500 people was meant to have a chilling effect. If you dare to challenge the system, this is what will happen to you. It is a gross abuse of our justice system. And I'm very happy that Donald Trump did this. And I hope that he looks at the other Republicans and go, I hope you know what time it is. We are fighting for the future of this country. We're fighting for the future of the republic. This is not a time to be mealy-mouthed or weak-spined. The fight has been joined. They have already declared war on us. Yeah. It's time for us to fight back, and the fight is worth it.
I love it. Ned Ryun, it was great sharing a cigar with you the other day, and it's great to have you on the show today.
Loved it.
Nice talking to you again.
Thanks.
All right. Let's see. Dave is calling in from Falls Church on line 2. Dave, good afternoon. You're on the Vince Coglianese Show. Hey, Dave.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Chris. Thank you. I'm
yes,
sorry, Vince. Thank you very much.
No problem. Go ahead.
Yeah, Mr. Tuberville talked a few minutes ago about the resistance among those who are objecting to the gender war that's going on now. And I just want to say here locally at the Fairfax County School Board, that's an absolute majority run by Democrats and liberals, et cetera, to the extreme. There will be absolute resistance to anything and they will trot out all the pressure groups that are sponsoring everything going on. So I've spoken several times at the school board, and I'm an honorary Mama Grizzly, but basically it's always cheap entertainment to watch what's going
Well,
on.
you know what the great way to pressure the Fairfax County School Board into compliance? Remove their federal funding if they keep abusing these children. They're taking, what, $50 million a year from the feds? Yeah, no more of that. That's easy. Snap your fingers. It's gone. Trump can do that. All right, stay with us. Ahead, John Solomon from Just the News. John Yoo, the former Deputy Assistant Attorney General, and, of course, you. All ahead on the Vince Coglianese Show.